and stick with us. So one thing, you're a CDO, right? You're a Chief Data Officer. Okay. First question. If you are all here, I'm very excited because I interview many companies to create a framework that I teach in an MBA about how to be a successful data-driven company. And I think that today we have some great examples. So most of you, if you are there, is because you want to create, you want your company to be data-driven. We have successful people. First thing, how did it start? How did you end up being here today?
Well,
Dr. Stephen.
I mean, when I go back 1.5 years when I started at Outfittery, so actually the company was on its way to become data-driven. Yeah? So, but the situation actually was slightly that way that there exists a machine learning department, there exists a BI department, but they didn't work together properly. Yeah? So this was one of the situations I was confronted. And the first thing, of course, I did, I merged them. Yeah? I pooled them so that all data activities are under one roof. And I think this is also very important. But what was also an issue, and that's why Outfittery hired me, there was no one really devising a data strategy for the company. Yeah? So the CTO actually led the machine learning initiatives, which maybe is, if he has experience with data, then it's great. But if he is not, then of course things may go wrong. And so what I started with is also devising a strategy, a data strategy, so especially a data science strategy for the company, which then turned into a product strategy, actually. Yeah. And the third thing, and this is also very important, and I put a lot of emphasis on that, is to align all the KPIs that are used across the different departments. Because when you speak to two different people from different departments and you speak about what you think is the same KPI, you immediately recognize they talk about completely different things. Yeah? So and that's why what I also did, I created what I call the KPI Bible. I sit together with all the business and we defined each and every KPI so that now everything is aligned. And if two people speak about one thing, then it's really one thing and not two.
Okay, great. Thank you. So one data, one strategy.
Yes.
One person.
Same meaning to everything, yes.
Alexander.
Yeah, first of all, who knows GetYourGuide? Who knows what we are doing? Well, okay, not too many people. So shortly, GetYourGuide is a platform where you can book guided tours or other in-destination travel activities, like tickets for sites, for example, or excursions. So for a startup, the company is quite old. It's 8 years old now. And I would say, being founded by natural scientists, it was from the beginning data supported. So decisions were somehow based on data, but it was not really data driven in the sense that there were data products that the control over critical business units was given to algorithms. So this only changed in the last 1 to 2 years. And when I started a year ago, there was basically no data science department. And most of the infrastructure was based on a data warehouse. So there was also nothing like a data lake or something. So the first thing that we did was building a data team consisting of data engineers, data scientists, and BI. We put all the data together into data lake, into modern data lake, Spark-based data lake. And we started to automate things. So here the biggest pain point was the SEM, the search engine marketing. Just because you can imagine, if you look for tickets for the Eiffel Tower, you don't go to a particular supplier or something. You just Google or Bing or whatever, tickets Eiffel Tower. So this is where we get our customers mostly from. And this was managed manually. So thousands of products in dozens of languages, attached to dozens of keywords each, completely manually managed. And now in the last month, we basically put this to an automated process. And the great thing, if you're so early in the data science process, is that you really see each day, like, what is your impact on the revenue. So you do a small change, the system becomes much smarter, and we are far away from any saturation in terms of intelligence. So it's really like increasing by 2-3% easily. And that's great. And this is what I'm currently working on.
Okay, thank you. So you're saying a will from the company, because they had to create a data science, and then you're saying that the great thing is that now you can measure. Actually, you said the same thing. It's about KPI. Yeah. But being able to see the signal through the noise.
Yes.
Great.
Thank you.
We have Zalando here today. Tell us more about it.
Hi, everyone. I'm Alex Rahin from Zalando. I'm relatively new to Berlin and to Zalando. Moved here about 2 months ago from Seattle. Previously with one of those 2 companies in Seattle. What a wonderful city. That's the first thing I want to say. I'm really happy to be here. Just wanted to say that because it's been a fantastic experience so far. With respect to data science, I think when I arrived a couple of months ago, I saw a company that is very fast-paced, very agile, with a lot of velocity, and a lot of success, and a lot of talent. And because the culture of the company is very open to new products, new ideas, experimentation, you have pros and cons. And when it comes to data science, you can have a situation where the creativity is just exploding, but then the collaboration, the alignment, some level of structure is missing. So one of the first things that I'm putting to place are essentially systems, KPIs, to align everybody, to make sure we have specific goals, we have specific targets, we have specific definitions. But the one thing I want to add to what my 2 colleagues shared is that on top of the challenges that you can assume a data-driven company has, we also have a business challenge, because we're in the midst of transforming the company into a platform with very strong marketplace characteristics. So there is a lot of work that's happening, even understanding the business. So it's not even about necessarily understanding the existing KPIs. To some extent, you have to reinvent the KPIs. Which really brings me to my last point. I think the mindset we need to have as data scientists is a mindset that really starts with the product. It really starts with the business problem. And if I take it even further, the business problem has only meaning as it relates to the customer. So it really starts, you have to be very specific. Think about the customer, think about the use case, be very strict about what the use case is, and then based on that, you come up with a solution. I've seen a lot of places that have one success, maybe with an algorithm, maybe with a specific kind of data, and they try to force feed that into products. That really is something I would caution against. So I think if you want to take my own experience and use it as a model, look at how data science is successful. You're not alone as a data scientist. You have a product person that you work with, usually, and you also have an infrastructure and data engineering support. When you do your work, be aware and be aligned with your partners. And if you don't have these partners, sometimes you can carry that burden yourself, but don't neglect any of these 3 areas. That's my advice. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, one point which is true, but I see very often in companies that I consult or that I interview, is that the KPI is not here for itself. The KPI is here to modelize, to represent real life. And so you have to keep that in mind when you are data-driven. Andy is here, and Andy is lucky because you have a real mic.
Yeah, I feel like I should be the moderator, like I've got your mic and you've got mine.
I mean, why? Why do I have this?
Yeah. So yeah, thanks for having me again, twice in 1 hour or however long it's been. So yeah, I joined Etsy relatively recently, like 2 years ago, just before our IPO. So we'd been, by then we already had a fairly mature data capability in many ways. You know, there was a good culture of A/B testing, trusting the data rather than intuition, and a very strong analytics team that covered product analytics, business analytics, and marketing analytics. So unlike some companies, we divide things up maybe slightly differently. The analytics team are responsible for answering questions effectively, reporting, forecasting, generating actionable insight, or whatever the kind of buzzword of the day is for modeling things and coming up with answers and predictions. The data science team are an engineering team. So our job is actually to literally build data-driven products. So we're responsible for recommendation engines, personalization algorithms, search ranking and relevance to an extent, search assist to an extent, so things like type ahead and related searches and that kind of thing. When I joined, we were in a bit of a weird position because although we were making changes that were very, very user-focused, you know, changing the order of things in someone's search results or changing the personalized items that they would get in their emails, we were part of the infrastructure engineering organization. And that's probably, I think, mostly because we didn't really write a lot of PHP or JavaScript and we didn't have a designer on the team. So we weren't considered a product engineering team. And it really limited the input we could have into the roadmap of the product. You know, we didn't really get sort of a seat at the table in many ways, and we were just kind of consulted further down the line as some feature was in a fairly mature stage to kind of, hey, let's sprinkle some recommendations on it, you know. Since maybe just about 6 months ago, we've consolidated with the search infrastructure and search ranking teams to form a group called Search Sciences that spans across product and infrastructure. So we're responsible for building our own infrastructure, but we're also responsible for shaping product decisions about how data products get built and what the right ones to build actually are. While I think a lot of people might think that, you know, what's data science and search, how are they the same thing? If you think about it, you know, recommendations are just search without a query, right? They're implicit search based on your history or the thing you're looking at. Or if you think about it the other way around, search could be thought of as recommendations with a filter attached to them. So it does make a lot of sense organizationally to bring all of those groups together and give them a shared roadmap and a proper voice at the table. So that's how we got to where we are now.
Okay, thank you. So to sum up what you said on the first question is that we need to have a wheel, top down, one data, agree on the KPI, one KPI. The KPI have to reflect reality, and for you, it's more about, yes, again, at the end of the day, the KPI is for a product, so it's all about the product and the client. Okay, so now all you guys are a true data-driven company. What is your main challenge? I mean, in front of you or maybe a bit further? Doctor.
Well, I think currently our main challenge is that the more data products you bring live, the slower your data scientist team will become, because the more maintenance you will have with all these products. And what we're currently working on, we're trying to solve this by establishing what we call a data delivery team, so that the data scientists can really focus on their job, which is mainly research and no longer building products and maintaining products.
Yeah. That's a great point. I see that in many companies indeed. You know, at one point you need to be super careful that your data scientist do data science, and not let them do something else than that. You know, suck into something else.
Usually, data scientists are very gifted, right? So of course they can program, and of course they can do all the math, and in principle they can do everything, but they shouldn't, because it's a very expensive resource.
It's true, and they can quit. You know, they can leave you very easily if you don't treat them well. What do you think about that?
I'd like to answer this question from a more product point of view. So for me, the biggest challenge, not only for our platform, but also for all the other platforms here on stage and most of the platforms I've seen so far, is user experience, especially recommendation. Yeah. If you think about how you find a product in the store with the help of a salesperson, the older of you will probably remember how it is to go to a store and not to order online. So if you remember how this was or how this is, you go there with a more or less vague idea, and you present this idea, and then you have some kind of chat, and maybe this person shows you like 2 or 3 items, and somehow you get closer and closer to what you want, compared to today's platforms where you have some raw filters, you have a search, and then you have a blob of items, and maybe you can sort them then by price or by customer rating or whatever. There's so much more to improve. And I think it's just the rise of the smart agents you can really talk to. And I think this will be a big topic even in the next years. And it will completely change how these platforms look like and how they welcome you when you go to the website. So I think this is a really interesting and also beneficial topic.
Yeah, so that's good challenges you have. Mr.?
Yes, thank you. That's actually a great question, because we have really, I think, challenges I would start to share with you at a couple of levels. So first and foremost, if you look at Zalando today, there is a lot of data science already that we do. And going back to the first point I made, there is an opportunity for us to work better together. Working better together means very good alignment about problems, and then trying to solve problems once or twice. You don't want to have a situation where your data science teams are siloed and they reinvent the wheel. It's very inefficient and, quite frankly, very discouraging sometimes. So when you look at the workflow of data, there are some parts that you can very easily automate, and some other parts where you don't necessarily want to automate to begin with. You can just have the right tools to gain efficiency. So our target for this entire workflow is to have enough of a structure, enough of an automation, and enough of really a cultural shift, if you will, to iterate very quickly, do experimentation, learn from that experimentation, and then improve the process. Yeah. So it's really quick iterations around the data science workflow. That's really our #1 challenge today that we're working on through a variety of directions. But what that really means, I also want to share you more of a long-term kind of a perspective, which is, look at the business we're in. So we're in the fashion business, which is pretty cool. You know, as you can see, well, maybe you can't see, but it is very cool, but it's also very challenging, right? So among the many things that add to the challenge of data science in fashion is this topic of seasonality, right? The topic of what's going to be in next season and what's not, and how do you know? Never mind the fact that it changes every year, right? You don't know in which direction. It's a pretty cool challenge if you're a data scientist, right? If you do have good ideas, please come talk to me, because we're interested. But all of this, why do we do all of this? Because we have many challenges like this that we want to solve. And really the only way to solve is have a system, have an organization, and have a culture that learns from each other, and have the tools to support it so they can iterate quickly and solve these problems together. I could go on, but yeah. You know, right. This is my key point here. Yeah, go ahead.
Andy.
Well, I would actually echo what you said about seasonality. We have exactly the same problems. I mean, right now it makes sense to recommend hats, scarves, and gloves to people unless they're in Australia or South Africa, right? In which case it's a really dumb thing to recommend at this time of year. And also we have kind of event-based, you know, things that happen in the real world unexpectedly get reflected on Etsy very quickly. So, you know, Donald Trump called Hillary Clinton a nasty woman, and like the next day people started selling nasty woman t-shirts and other nasty woman accessories on the site. So, you know, being able to respond very quickly to things like that. But also, you know, we were quite early adopters of data and data-driven processes in general. You know, we've been using Hadoop since, you know, the dawn of time. We've got a machine learning library that runs on Hadoop that predates Spark entirely, I think. And, you know, we run on fairly kind of what you might call a classic web stack using, you know, MySQL and PHP. But then, you know, the guy that invented PHP works for us, so it would be kind of silly to use a different language. But it does mean that we've got fairly kind of well-established roots in certain technologies, and they've served us well over the years, but it makes it a little bit harder to experiment quickly with new frameworks for doing, you know, streaming analytics or models that update incrementally in real time as someone's using the site, or things like bandit algorithms that make decisions based on activities of users as they happen. Like, by comparison, you know, if somebody posts a listing or updates a listing, it gets into our search indexes in a matter of minutes, whereas on the big data side where we're building machine learning models, that's all still in the world of nightly jobs. And that's fine for the other customers of our Hadoop cluster, the people that are doing, you know, the daily reports and the A/B testing framework and that kind of thing. You know, the CFO doesn't really care about, you know, second-by-second real-time financial analytics. But we're starting to think now about what the architecture of the future needs to look like. And when you've got a very firmly established set of tools that have been serving you well for several years, that requires quite a lot of, you know, you've got a lot of momentum to overcome there.
Right, right. It's true that the company that I meet and I help, very often I can see that the framework, at the end of the day, it's work. So you need a framework to organize the work and to organize the way you deal with your project. Okay, it's time to eat. So give them some food. Give them one best practice and worst practice to work out this as a takeaway, let's say. So what will be your worst practice in terms of data-driven company and the best practice that you've seen?
Let me start with best practice.
I'll let you.
I think the most important thing, what you really have to do is you have to make everything measurable, yeah? Because what you can't measure, you can't improve. And if you can't measure it, and you're not a data-driven, you never will become a data-driven business. Actually, the worst experience, I would maybe also phrase it in a positive way. If you really want to become data-driven, yeah, and you see the future of your company in data science, then you have to bring it top of mind of everyone, and especially on top of the C-level. Yeah. And this means you should have a CDO.
Yeah, true. Thank you. Alexander.
So we are all data natives here, right?
Yeah.
And I think also the four of us had quite a lot of agreement in what we said. Still, my learning is, even if you are hired from a data-driven company to make it even more data-driven, don't expect that anybody at this company knows what data-driven means. So you continuously need to advocate data science and data-drivenness. And here I agree with Stephen, you need somebody quite high in the hierarchy who really backs you up and supports you. Let it be a CDO, let it be an experienced VP engineering, whatever. But if you're just hired as a data scientist and then people think, now we are done, now we are data-driven, this won't work. And you will be disappointed, and the company will be disappointed.
Yeah, great. It's true. You have to own it. I mean, the company has to own it. I mean, it has to be data-driven. Everyone.
Thank you. I just couldn't agree more, quite frankly.
You didn't say you were... Oh, no, yes, it was true.
Well,
yeah. Okay. Yeah, true.
Yeah. But maybe what I'll add to your point, which is probably the most central thing, is, okay, how do you do it, right? How do you do it? So there's many different ways to get there, but just imagine the end state. The end state is that your company doesn't even think about data scientists as a data scientist. Everybody uses data without even thinking twice. Yeah. So what that means is you have to become like data warriors in a sense, which means some of the best practices that are obvious to you and me may not be obvious or practiced elsewhere in the company. Yeah. You have to make sure your product managers are data-driven. You have to hold them accountable, right? If somebody shares some requirements with you and says, you know, we want to solve this, make sure you're clear on why you're doing it. Make sure you're clear on how it's measured. Make sure you're clear on what's the impact to the business and how that is measured. Every branch of the company needs to really understand that they can't just, you know, throw something at the wall hoping it's going to stick.
Right.
So I think that's really the most fundamental thing.
Thank you. Andy?
So I'd say best practice is to make all of your decisions based on empirical data, but the worst practice is to make your decisions based on the wrong data. Yeah. I could give examples. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to, but I could give examples of
you're going to take on the Q&A. I mean, I would like to have 1 minute for the Q&A.
Okay. I just want one very short thing to say.
One short one then.
Sometimes you may need to make a decision which makes a metric go down in order for long-term strategy to succeed. Yeah. Because not all metrics measure where you'll be in 6 months' time.
There's another thing that you didn't mention that I would like to mention is be super careful when you're data-driven of the human bias, especially the survivor bias, the confirmation bias. I mean, we are human after all, and once you have data on the table, it's not enough. You know, you need to have a clean mind to read it. So.